Hello and welcome back to our channel. In this episode, we're going to cover renovations. We are going to take a deep dive into what it requires to get the concept to completion. We'll cover design, construction, and closeout. We'll also take a little bit of a peek into what it looks like to budget properly for these kinds of projects. My name is Dallas Palmer. Welcome to Build Mod Media. So with today's housing market being a little bit elevated, you might find yourself in a position where you don't want to buy a new home. Instead, you're looking at your own home saying, well, maybe I can just renovate what I have and give it some updates. A new kitchen, new bathroom, maybe add some new space to the back of the house, something for a new family room. So where do we start in all of this process? First of all, you have to have some sort of a design. Now, depending on how extraneous you want to make the renovation, it may be as simple as just getting onto Pinterest and finding out, I like this tile, I like this toilet, I like this sink and vanity. And that's a pretty simple process to go through. But if it's any larger than that, you may actually want to employ a design professional. That way you can have a concise set of documents that leads you to a proper plan. So what does that look like as far as getting a designer? Well, you can go through an architect, and I know everybody's going to ask, well, how much does that cost? For an architect, you can plan on spending about 10 to 20% of the overall budget to have an architect fully design and document your project. The advantage to this is you have somebody that draws the prints, they include all the dimensions, they include specifications, and it generally involves all of the engineers involved with getting the design done. That can be structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Those documents are needed for larger renovations that require a permit. Another avenue you can go down is hiring a draftsperson. It's not as a complete set of documents as hiring an architect, but it gets everything you need together for a building department. You just need to make sure that they've employed all of the what we call consultants, which would be your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers, along with a structural if you're moving walls, in order to complete a set of documents that's ready for permit. How much do they cost? They can run 5 to 15% of your overall building budget. So once you get your architect or your draftsperson involved and they've created all the construction documents, then depending on the scope of work, you may have to go get a permit. Understand that once you apply for a permit, it's not a quick turnaround in most cases. Sometimes it can take a few days, and I've even had it take up to 4 months to pull a permit. So you might want to check with your local jurisdiction, your building department, and ask them what the lead time is, because if you're on a time crunch, it could make a difference in how you phase the construction schedule. Oh, and by the way, in a future episode, we're going to cover architects versus draftspeople. That'll give you an idea of what direction you want to go. We'll take a really deep dive into what each will perform and help you kind of decide which direction you want to go. One of the reasons why you might consider a renovation is it could potentially increase the value of your home. Also, if you live in a neighborhood that's more in a urban location, it's a lot harder to get a new home, unless of course you scrape an old home and build a new one, than moving to the outskirts of town where most new homes are being built. That may be a driving decision because you like that local coffee shop down the street or that restaurant. So it's something to consider as you're going through this process. Now, I touched lightly on what it takes to increase the value of your home. If you search online, there are websites that'll tell you what is a good return on investment. A new kitchen, it can actually multiply your money by about 50%. In other words, if you invest $50,000, it might add another $25,000 beyond the cost of the construction to the value of your home. But you want to be careful because some renovations actually are one for one. In other words, if you invest $10,000, it only increases the value of your home by $10,000. So you want to be very careful of what those are. If you're more curious about that kind of information, just leave a comment in the comment section below and we'll take a deeper dive into that. Now that you've thought about maybe an architect or a designer, your next question is probably, well, how much is this going to cost? So let's take a look at budgeting. It's a little bit hard to nail down what an actual cost will be without all of your selections. Let's use bathrooms for an example. If you literally go in and say, I want to leave the tub where it is, the toilet where it is, and the vanity and sink where it is, then we're just talking about a basic aesthetic remodel. New tub, new toilet, new vanity, some tile, and the fixtures that are involved in that. Paint, so on and so forth. You get the idea. That is going to run on your more cost-effective side. For example, that in itself for a master bathroom could cost you as little as $7,500. I have also performed with another company that I work for a major renovation of a large master bathroom where we reconfigured it and had some very expensive fixtures that we installed, and the total on that project was $125,000. That's what I said. $125,000. So that kind of gives you an idea of the spread that you're looking at. Take that into mind as you're creating your design. The more you move stuff, the more you take out walls, the more the cost. That being said, what about a kitchen? Well, you can go to IKEA and you can purchase an IKEA kitchen. Let's just go off of kind of an average kitchen. The overall cost with IKEA cabinetry and some fixtures from IKEA, some new drywall, some new tile, paint, you could be spending somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000 to $50,000. I'm currently renovating a house out in eastern Colorado where we have spent $120,000 in the kitchen. So that kitchen in itself, we actually took out some walls, expanded the living space, and then made the kitchen much larger than what it is with a 9-foot island. That kitchen in itself, with some custom cabinetry and tile, is running about $121,000. So bear in mind as you're going through your design that you want to look at what the budget is. You want to establish ahead of time, how much do I have to spend? And that will decide the fit and finish of your project. So speaking of fit and finish, I mentioned to you that we took out some walls in that project out in eastern Colorado. That required full construction documents. I had to get a permit on that project because we had to change the structure of the building. That in itself adds to the cost. So if you can fit everything inside of the existing envelope of what you're working with without moving plumbing around, without moving electrical, that's a more cost-effective way to do it. However, if you have the budget and you say, I want to spend $121,000 on a kitchen, you can move virtually anything around, and then that of course involves the demolition and the reconstruction. So that leads us to our next point. You may be saying, maybe I can do this myself. Well, you want to carefully examine what your skill sets are. If you're good with your hands and it's a minor renovation, you might want to consider doing that yourself. There are things that you might want to hire some tradespeople to do, such as replacing the tub unless you're really handy. I will tell you though that I do get phone calls of people that have actually tried to do a renovation themselves and they find out that it's too difficult. What you might want to do is look at all the resources out there on social media for tutorials on how to install tile, how to replace a vanity, how to mount a cabinet, how to install a countertop. There's all good resources out there and it might help you determine if you can do it yourself. Now, if you cannot do it yourself, and I would highly recommend for the larger projects where you're actually changing the structure and moving your mechanicals around, to hire a qualified general contractor. One aspect that you may not have realized during the process of performing the work yourself is certain trades that are critical to get the project done. Unless you have experience in, say, electrical or plumbing, you may want to go out and find good tradespeople. Now, you can do that, of course, through Angie's List, word of mouth, any of those other sources that you find on social media. But consider what it takes to get this project done, because it's a lot more than most people realize. You've considered your budget, and with your general contractor, you may have a question of whether or not you can perform some of the work. I've actually had this asked to me myself. Bear in mind that a general contractor should be carrying a general liability insurance policy. Not all insurance policies will actually cover a homeowner on the job site. So contractors may be shy to that. They may say, no, I'm sorry, you cannot do that work. Don't be offended. They're just protecting their liability. So maybe you've decided to hire a general contractor. And once again, cash is king. And your question would be, of course, how much is that going to cost? On a general scale, general contractors will take your budget and they will tell you whether or not they can build inside of those parameters. And their cost is going to be between 10 and 45% of the overall budget. How can you save a little bit of money when working with a general contractor? One thing that I would recommend is that when it comes down to sinks, tile, paint, some of the sundries that you would consider the finish and the trim out, purchase it yourself. Go ahead and go get the cabinets, whether it be from IKEA or William O. The reason being is if a contractor buys those for you, they're going to add their profit to that also. So think of that 10 to 45% that you can be saving on the material goods themselves. When it comes down to some of the structure like lumber, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, let them handle it, because that is a very specific set of tools that they use. And you don't want to get into trying to figure out if it's going to require a structural beam here or a 45-degree copper fitting over there. Another question that comes up is, how do I find a good general contractor? Well, the one thing I would recommend is using Angie's List or other social media sources to find out what the reputation of the contractor is. You can check with the Better Business Bureau. The best way that I have found, and I myself as a general contractor, is word of mouth. If you know somebody, somebody knows somebody that knows somebody that is a general contractor with a great reputation. The last thing you want to do is get involved with somebody that doesn't have the ability to complete the scope of work that you want to have performed. Maybe it's too big for them. Maybe they're kind of a newer company with somebody that doesn't have a whole lot of experience. So it's something to heavily consider as you're going through this process of finding a general contractor. Okay. You found a general contractor and you've got a major renovation. They're going to be tearing up your kitchen. They're going to get into your master bathroom. You may even be putting another story on your house, what we like to call a pop top, for obvious reasons. The question that you might want to ask yourself is, do I want to live through this renovation? Carefully consider that, because they're going to invade your home. You will have people working in your home 5 days, maybe 6 days a week. There's going to be dust. There's going to be noise. Nobody likes living in their basement, cooking their food on a warming plate, a microwave, and a bar refrigerator. So you might want to take a close look at your lifestyle. It might be wise to go ahead and move out during the renovation, which could be anywhere from, call it 2 months to 6 months, and take up temporary residence somewhere else. On the major projects that I do, I actually encourage homeowners to consider that heavily. It is a lot of strain and stress on a family. Once you've selected your general contractor, carefully look over his contract documents. I said contract. I know that in the good old days we used to do things off of handshakes, but in today's society it is wise to get a contract. Look over the pay schedule. Your bank, if you're getting a loan, may have certain requirements that says they'll only pay out once a month. Your contractor may have in there that the company wants to be paid every 2 weeks. You need to make sure that that is specified within the construction documents according to your pay schedule. Another thing to consider is change orders. Bear in mind that a lot of contractors will actually charge you a higher profit margin on a change order than the original contract. So you want to carefully consider what they have in their documents. It should actually say what the change order rate is. If not, you want to make sure that that is clearly identified. Now, speaking of change orders, if you change your mind or they open up a wall and find a structural defect that needs to be fixed, make sure that that contractor provides you with a change order proposal that you can read over. It should have both the time and the cost required to get the work completed. It is highly recommended that you don't allow them to perform the work unless you have reviewed that document and signed it. Okay, we all like the pretty stuff. We like the tile. We like the faucet that's over the kitchen sink. We like the new appliances. One thing to consider during the design process is energy efficiency. Do you have single pane windows with the old metal frames? You might consider putting in some double pane windows or even argon-filled windows so that you create a more energy efficient environment, because that actually has a return on investment. The more energy efficiency you can create into your home, the lower your utility bills are. All right, so you finally reached the finish line. Work is 99% done. It looks like you're ready to move in. You need to do a punch walk. You want to create a list, a punch list, for the contractor to go through and fix any deficiencies that you find. Take a look at the drywall, the paint. Is there a paint drip here and there? Is the tile and the grout set correctly? I would take your construction documents with you to use as reference. That is your legal recourse in case anything is installed incorrectly. And after that is all completed, then you can do a final sign-off with your contractor, give them the final payment, and move in. Well, we hope we have helped you decide whether or not to do a renovation today and provided you enough information. However, if you have any questions, just feel free to leave them in the comments below, and we'll address them for you. My name is Dallas Palmer. Thank you for watching.